Next week, you'll see these bandages unwrapped, and you'll get a good close look at the face beneath them. It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different. Our play is called The Eye of the Beholder, and it comes recommended. I hope we'll see you next week on The Twilight Zone. Thank you and good night.
That was quick. That was a very fast...
He's relying on some prop work there, which I'm usually a bit, but I'm here for it.
I've got somewhere to go.
You had to wrap it up quick because the person in the band just couldn't breathe.
Literally had to wrap it up.
All right, that's a wrap. Yeah, that's a
wrap. So, I mean, what do we know? We know there's going to be a reveal of someone under some bandages?
Some kind of surgery victim or some kind of...
Is this going to be a morality play on, Eye of the Beholder? Don't, believe everything you see? It could be something more underneath.
Inner beauty versus exterior, that's always a prescient theme.
I don't know.
You got a Jack Black movie about that. That means it's an everlasting tale.
It's the Canamet from To Serve Man. He's come back for a cameo.
Just on the odd side, can you imagine Rod Serling directing Jack Black? What would that look like?
I want to see that alternate universe. Guess what? There's an alternate universe where Rod Serling was born and he created Twilight Zone way later, and Jack Black is in there.
I'll put it in.
I think he's in X-Files, isn't he?
Yeah, I'll put it in that new Sora OpenAI things.
Jack Black was in everything.
Yeah.
Every show I watch, Jack Black shows. Golden Girls. Jack Black just randomly shows up at one point.
He is one of the He's the fourth Golden Girl.
All right.
Go. Sorry. Anyway, pre-ratings. Give us some numbers. Also, what are you? Let's start with you. What's your expectation?
Really?
Yeah, let's do it.
I don't like to influence people.
All right. Well, stars then.
That being said, I will give this. I will pre-rate this 5.5 rods out of 10. It is a classic. It is very well known. It's not my favorite.
Interesting. You have influenced me. Just to let you.
Damn it.
I don't see. Now you said last week you said like, oh no, you can't. Everyone that says 7 just plays it safe. But I'm kind of like, I want to do a 7. I'm intrigued. So maybe I'm just gonna go. I'll go for a 6.5. I'll go average, but a bit lower. I'm not sure. I think Rod Serling seemed a bit rushed. He was in and out there pretty quick.
I don't know. I think brevity is the soul of wit. I think that a little bit of like teasing prop work, just like a little bit of casual confidence. And guess what? I believe in Mr. Sully. I would give this a pre-rating of. Give us a 7. No, we said no 7s. We said no 7s.
Commit. Coward.
No. Guess what? I'm gonna be. I have faith in my boy Rod. I'm gonna go with an 8.
Oh, nice. We're never going to give a 1, are we, in these pre-races? Like, nah, Rod, I don't even want to watch this. Fuck off.
I feel like you'd have to come out and take a shit on the floor, and even then I'd still be so impressed at the audacity.
Did you see the way they filmed that pile? Wow, what great cinematography.
Saw the shadow first, just on the silhouette on the wall. Sorry, Dan, go on.
Can we get an AI generation of Rod Serling?
No, stop, Dan. Give me your rating.
So you guys were dumping on the length of old in and out quick Rod's intro here, but I think I do agree that the less the more, and I can't give it a 7, maybe a 6.9. No, I'm gonna go down to a 6. I think I do know which episode this is, and I think a 6 is fair as a pre-rate.
We're going to avoid those 7s till the end of time, but meanwhile, let's go watch the episode.
This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone.
Welcome everyone to the Holodeck, our exploration of things that are non-Trek, and a little adventure into the Twilight Zone continues with this episode, The Eye of the Beholder, proving that if this didn't invent the phrase, it certainly popularized it. Otto, as ever, I'm going to ask you, why did you pick this episode for us?
So I have the Beholder is the last in my bucket of the primer series. These are the classics. These are ones everyone knows best. Most of these have a good representation of people say, this is my favorite episode. So this one had to make the list, and I guess it's as simple as that. And then after this, we'll be looking at some other. We'll be looking at some great Burgess Meredith episodes, some Star Trek alum episodes, and whatnot. But these are the classics.
Yes.
Go ahead, Stars. I know you're
He's
chomping at
itching
the
to
bit,
talk. He's just like, I got something. Let's go.
I got something to say, damn it. So we mentioned directorial flair when it's turned up, especially in Will the Real Martian Stand Up? Like that was the one where it's like the standout of just like visual flourish. I don't know if this came before or after With the Real Martian Stand Up. This one come before or after?
Question.
I think this one came after.
Okay, because I'd say like as much props as we gave
No, it
that.
came before.
This is
Okay.
so...
Oh no, this came before.
Yeah,
it was the same
exactly.
season.
Okay, in which case, guess what? This blows that out of the water for just like pure. This is, Idle, you'll get this. I don't know if you guys have played this, but BioShock vibes almost of just like pure style and a lot of Sander Cohen, a lot of like Dr. Steinman vibes. Just pure
you know what?
style.
I got so many different vibes from this. Like we mentioned it when we watched it just now, but like, with film noir vibes from it. There's a little bit of 1984 in there, with the doublethink and the leader kind of proclaiming everything. And there's a little bit of The Wall in there, although this is obviously predated a lot, but that's just the vibe I'm getting from it. But I loved their use of, the gimmick became like laughable as they went on, because once you cottoned onto it was just like, all right, this is what they're doing. But the way they hid everyone's faces, like at first it was dramatic and effective, and then Rod Serling turns up as a shadow following. I was like, you're probably wondering what everyone's doing here, but no. But everyone, the way they were very clever for 1960, of how they did this and how they blocked every shot to keep everyone's faces obscured, and the way that people moved around. And it was very deliberate, very not, this isn't how people would move, but they did it in a way to say we're reinforcing a point here, and I kind of love that.
That's exactly what I mean by it being so heavily stylized.
Yeah.
Like, no, people aren't doing things in a way that makes sense for human beings to do. They're doing things in ways that accentuate the style. They are doing things that are almost camp. Let's be real here.
I'm going to be the old man of the group right now.
The vibe.
I'm going to be the old man of the group. Like, people aren't making telly like this. People aren't doing things like this for... No, but they're not. Like, a lot of things I watch some very good television. I enjoy a lot of stuff that's on now, but this definitely pushed me back to why are people not taking risks like this? Why aren't they pushing the boundaries? Or at least, maybe I'm not watching the right kind of cinema, but which I probably am not. But I mean, I did start to watch Aquaman 2 last night.
This is the first episode where I've really felt like I was actually transported to the Twilight Zone for the entire episode. Not only because of the noir stylings and the disquieting fact that there are just no faces shown for like 20 full minutes. It's just a fantastic length of time. You mentioned it's a little bit laughable, but I found that once I got over the hump of the suspension of disbelief that we're not going to see any faces in this episode, and really it let me focus on the narrative, really reflect on all of the different beats that they were trying to hit throughout. But also let me kind of surrender to the atmosphere. Very atmospheric, very claustrophobic episode.
Yeah, it was claustrophobic, wasn't it?
And I think that there's something to be said for the pacing of this episode, because there's a lot of filler. It's entirely, this could be a radio play. It's entirely dialogue based. It still winds up delivering, and it still kept my attention for the time of the episode. Otto, you've been real quiet so far. We've had a lot to say. What about you?
Actually, I didn't want to pick on you, Dan. I feel like I do that sometimes. You look kind of nauseous, actually, when we started this review. I'm like, oh, does he not like it? But I guess you do, and I'm glad about it.
Well, I didn't say I liked it. There's a lot to think about, and we talked on a prior episode just about how good sci-fi provokes thought, and there's a lot to think about. There's a lot of great topics that this touches. Not only the most transparent one about the value of beauty standards, which is going to be funny for watching four white guys talk about female beauty standards for the next 10 minutes.
Not the first time.
But we touch on topics of convalescence, value. So the entire episode, I thought where they were going with it was we heard the voice of an elderly female actor, and it turns out the voice is very different. The actress that's revealed at the end, Janet Tyler's young actress, actually throughout the episode is voiced by somebody who appears on IMDb to have been in her 50s at the time of recording.
She was 42, I believe.
42. Okay, all right, yeah. So like for the 1959, we were talking about how Rod Serling appears much older than he is. He's in his 30s in this episode, and he seems like he could be all of our dads.
Well, fun fact about that. Doug Hayes, who directed the episode, had planned to have Maxine Stewart, who spoke all the lines of the main character, Janet Tyler, when her head was entirely covered by bandage, dub in a single line when she's revealed. But he chose Stewart because her voice did not suggest a beautiful girl. It suggested a strong, harsh, realistic woman, and therefore the unveiling would be a surprise. But when it came to the time that she was unveiled, and Donna Douglas had these words to say, she did them so accurately in the same voice that they never actually dubbed her. So, it was, a little behind the scenes there.
I have to give massive props to the voice actors, by the way, because it's like we were kind of like making a little bit of fun of like there's no pop filtering going on here. This is very much just like unaltered voice acting. Like they don't really do a ton to do. Like the physical acting and the voice acting are almost completely separated. There's not a lot of work done to make them the two seem like. But I feel like they almost added to the vibe almost of that disconnect.
Some of the VO was very like when she starts talking and she's under the mask. I thought, okay, they're doing that for like obviously when she talks, you can't pick it up. But when the doctor then suddenly he turned around and there was VO from him, that sounded like there was a little bit of a production slip there, but probably he was saying things that went, no, we have to change this, but we can't reshoot it, so let's
I think with all of the very careful camera work that they had to do, there was really no room to maneuver boom mics the way they needed to. They had to really loop a whole bunch of this.
Yeah, I feel
some
like
more background on the voice acting. Because so much of the episode was done with the voice work, director Douglas Hayes turned away from actors during their audition to ensure he'd cast the sort of voices he was looking for. Quote, I kept my back to them until after I'd heard them because I wanted from the doctors and the nurses the most sympathetic voices that I could hear. Serling's original script had the doctors as emotionless tools of the state with contempt for, quote, ugliness. Director Doug Hayes convinced them to change it so that they had a genuine empathy for someone they see as an innocent victim of genetic deformity. Props for the creator of the show.
Rare L for Rod Serling, but good that he took it on board.
No, it's a win because he's the creator and the writer, and he said, you know what, your suggestion is better, let's go with that. He didn't force his own win.
He took an L and he changed it into a win.
It's nice to see that dynamic exists, that the director can put something forth and.
Yeah, because I think the director's absolutely right. I think this would be a much inferior episode if it was nothing but like the doctors and nurses being unremittingly negative and cruel, and it would give away way too quickly the stuff about the leader. Like they're very quick to the leader, and you're like, okay, that's very fascisty like overtones, but they don't show him and they don't give away the whole kind of fascist vibe until you've already sprung the jack in the box, as it were.
And it's interesting.
And I feel
there's like you say, Stars, subtlety is for cowards. This is definitely not. By the time we're at the end there, they're very much hammering home the point of, they even say it twice, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But what I love is the second layer of this, which is like, actually there is a little bit of world building going on. We have this fascist government that says everyone has to look the same. This is very much obviously a response to the Nazi regime, but it is definitely I keep mentioning this in all my reviews, but you watch this in 1960 and it starts to hammer home the point of where Western thinking is going, of like how we should start to adapt to other cultures and how it could have gone had we gone down a certain way where everyone has to look the same, everyone has to do the same kind of thing, and this kind of uniformity of fascist culture makes you look like a pig person,
Yeah, it's more than fascism though, because so we're talking about the 1950s. This was aired in 1960, but so on the tail end of the 1950s, the decade of apartheid, the decade of segregation in schools, Brown versus the Board of Education, all of this is unfolded in the prior decade. So all of this is fresh in the minds of Americans at home as well as watching events unfold overseas. Seeing history repeat itself from something that just happened, 2 decades prior with what you had mentioned, Idol.
We're watching this from a distance, and this is still equally as impactful. I feel like there are still things to learn from this, or there are still points that it makes very well. Not just the whole, oh, she's beautiful all along. Oh, what a weird twist. I love that how it actually portrays it a bit more than that. They add that little bit with the leader to kind of hammer home that we're gonna put. Just, it's like, you do something, but if you want to do it really well, you add a little bit more, and then people notice that more. And this is Rod Serling's just put a bit more in, and that kind of makes the episode for me.
Yeah, I actually really appreciated the stark contrast between the the very, very oblique and very obvious depiction of the leader versus the very sympathetic and very, in their way, kind hospital staff, because it kind of underlines the fact of. It's like the doctor is kind. Some of the nurses are very nice, and then there's the one who's just it's just so ugly, and you're like, well, and then you get the twist, and you kind of see that in a different way. But I feel like that makes a way stronger point about what fascism and this uniformity of thought is in terms of it's not just a load of people in jackboots. That's never what fascism looks like. Fascism looks like a lot of very nice people who nonetheless find it way easier to subscribe to a certain school of thought because it's easy and it's attractive and everyone else is doing it. And it's very easy to find those people sympathetic or who are likable. But guess what? They still subscribe to this school of thought.
Which wasn't where I thought the episode was going. When you go to the start, you sort of in the first 5-10 minutes, you're thinking, oh, this is all going to be... I kind of had in my hints, I thought I was going to reveal, and she's actually going to be the good-looking one after all, and the reason they're hiding their faces is going to be one thing. I thought this was going to be a little bit of a melodrama on, how people see things. And where they say, eye of the beholder is challenge yourself to see ugliness as beauty, not everyone's built the same way. But actually, turns out to be something a whole lot more deeper than that, and I was a bit like, okay, I was taken aback from those last 10 minutes, how it all unfolded. It was a bit like, oh wow, you've set up a whole Hunger Games-esque, 1984-esque kind of dystopian society here that I kind of want to see a little bit more of, if I'm honest.
There's a comment I read recently that's kind of stuck in my head where someone said Serling doesn't get enough credit for America's post-war morality. And it's kind of true. When he does these epilogues, and this episode didn't necessarily have it, but a lot of them have these incredible epilogues that pan bigotry and hatred and that kind of stuff. And it's kind of like the cherry on the sundae. And 6 years later, when you think about a sundae, close your eyes and think about a sundae, you can't picture it without the cherry. So the things that he added back then, we can't even necessarily always appreciate unless you were there at the time and remember exactly how things were. So I want to get a little bit negative here because I don't really love this episode. The blocking is fantastic for what they were going to do. Dan, what you said about feeling like you're in the zone, not just a very close parallel universe, I like that. But this was a 10-minute story, basically, that they stretched out to over double the length. The conclusion was kind of obvious. It might even have been obvious back then, even though they tried their best with the film noir style. And it's a good bit of suspense, but I don't feel a tug of war. I don't feel a conflict here. Society wants her to conform. She desperately wants to conform. This is her 11th procedure to try to look normal. And instead of this engaging, empathetic lead, we get kind of a faceless, generic patient who doesn't want to be herself. She wants to conform to everyone else. She wants to fit in, and so I feel like that tug of war is missing from the episode, which doesn't really hurt the suspense, but I think it would have been a better payoff if I could empathize with her a little more.
So I actually had to fight you on that point. I don't think that Ms. Janet Tyler is actually all that generic. I think that there is, and I have to give all the credit to the voice acting for her, especially because, in their choice of an older voice actress, she's able to channel this intense vulnerability, this borderline hysteria, this incredible dysphoria and dysmorphia. Guess what? We have terms for these feelings now. This incredible just anxiety within yourself over I don't look right. And guess what? My online handle is Starsicards because I really like the character of Beast Metron, right? This is literally the kind of essential morality play with that character as well, of acceptance by society, acceptance of yourself, and how easy minor flaws, and obviously this is a case of they go with the overt and the exotic here for the clarity of television, but I don't know if you guys have ever noticed this, but I actually have a teeth here, one of my teeth here is slightly out of alignment.
Oh, I got one of those.
With all my other
just
teeth
on there.
It's just slightly there.
Look at these Brits.
Stop reinforcing the stereotypes, Stars. God damn it.
Yeah, we're shocking no one here, but continue.
Yeah. And just fucking drives me nuts. I don't think anyone else in my entire life has ever noticed that one tooth there is out of alignment. But every time I run my tongue over it, every time I eat something, every time I think about it, it annoys me. And like, there's other things, like when I was a kid, I had like really bad acne. I've struggled with my appearance for a long time. So like, I see myself a lot in characters like Beast, and I see myself in Miss Janet Tyler. I know what that feels like. So you say she's face is generic? No, I empathize with this pain very deeply. Like, I don't have it, obviously, nearly as bad as people who have, say, like cleft palates or any other kind of physical disability where it's even more extreme, but I know what this feels like, and especially the voice actress just portraying that. It doesn't even have to be as strong as people telling you have to conform. It's living in a culture that has certain beauty standards, and just not even just for female beauty standards, but just for human beauty standards of your teeth should be straight, of you should have clear skin, you look like this, you should look like that, and it's like that empathy. Her voice really did a great job of bringing it out of me, because it was just so much more mature and it felt like a real person. Like, that's what I got from this episode.
I always want to shout out productions that can do amazing, like keep me grip. Like, we were talking about how we were just all silent watching it. Usually we're just cracking jokes left, right, and centre. This one, we were all silent, and not a face was shown. No physical emotion, no like traditional trappings of acting. It was a case of like a obscured face and in shadowed face, like, and we're all watching that, which goes to show, we're part of that is like how gripping the drama is, and how gripping like the presentation of that drama that is, that can hook you to an episode. And I think that kind of
how much of the viewing experience is derived from just watching facial cues and actors use their talents in that way.
We always talk about Anson Mount. Anson Mount giving amazing micro expressions in Strange New Worlds. Like, we praise him endlessly for that, and it does. It is a big part of it. But for a director and for an episode of television to be able to do that without showing a single person's face, just to let the scenario, let the setting, and let those little oddities, like them saying like, oh, it's always 11. 11's the standard, and you're thinking like, something's not right here, and your brain's sort of like doing the uncanny valley effect, but with stories, or with like with film, and thinking like, hang on, there's a little bit more to this than someone going through plastic surgery. Like, it's masterwork. Like, it's brilliant.
These procedures go up to 11.
So
the other thing.
Oh, sorry, go on, Dave.
As we're discussing, this is a fantastic discussion. So I'm still on the fence about this episode, because it was a directorial choice to extend the facelessness into the second act. They could have very easily, at the end of the first act, first commercial break, had the reveal, and then had the entire second half be going through the fallout and running through corridors and all the other stuff, the action stuff. But they chose not to do that, and to stick to their guns and force us to pay attention and to live in this world for extra time. And I'm wondering the value of this, and I'm still trying to introspect about how I really feel about this. It's a fantastic study, because I'm impressed that they took the time to do it. I just still don't know whether it's the right answer or not.
I mean, I feel like it comes. I mentioned like Hitchcock would watch this and have just like the most incredible, just like like he would be enrapturous of it, because you see, we talked before about the Hitchcock bomb under the table principle, and it's literally the exact same thing here. You don't have to see. We haven't been shown the bomb on the table, but guess what? We can make a guess as to what is going on here, because we're educated, intelligent human beings. Well, most of us. It's me. I'm the one who's not intelligent.
Raise my hand.
Sean, you're smarter than all three of us combined. Come on.
But it's just like that. The commitment to the bit is important, because you need it puts you in Janet's mindset, because she is in that suspense, and it's like that build up of like, yes, it's going on too long. That's the point. It needs to be too long. It can't be, because she is on tenterhooks. She is clinging onto that cliff face just with her barest fingers, just like, let me be fucking normal, please, God. Just begging for it.
I feel like, we talk about how like we're looking for a moral for this story, and our traditional morals for like modern television is that there is one moral, that is, you shouldn't judge someone just by how they look. Don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge a Janet by her jaundice. But this kind of took it to another, which I can understand why you're feeling confused now, because this kind of took it to another level. It wasn't just that. If that was the main moral of the story in a kind of TNG plot, you'd have Captain Picard going, well, Wesley, you shouldn't, just judge this character by, what they look like. They're a shape-shifting Alice.
Shucks, Captain.
Yeah, please don't sleep with her again. But this took it up to that next level, and it took it up to. And I can understand that it is confusing because you kind of don't know where to think, like where the story lies. Is it a product of like don't judge a book by cover, or is it like actually maybe it's society's fault that people do this, or maybe this is like a product of all our intentions or of how we ourselves have been shaped as a normalized society through how our culture has developed. And it is a little confusing of that. That's my point.
So I said they stretched a 10-minute story to 22, and I believe that, but I don't actually think they stretched the reveal too long. I actually would have liked it a little bit longer. Excuse my baseness, but Idol was edging over here real good the entire time, and he wanted that reveal. He wanted it, and when it came, it was a good payoff. So they could have gone a little longer. I actually thought the leader and the Nazi stuff, which they said in behind the scenes, they were clearly going for that, the hand movements and everything. You could even cut that out. I think we got all of that from the doctors and the nurses, and they gave us that point of view, and they talked about the society, and I think they even went over the top then with the dear leader stuff. So if you'd have cut maybe a minute or two from her running through the hallways and that playing in the background and just edged just a little bit longer, I think that even could have been better.
I kind of would contest that a little bit. I'm going to argue with this. Stars had to go at you earlier. It's my turn now.
I get to be the heel this time. This is so fun.
I contest that because there's something about having like a film where you think everything's normal and you think this is how the plot's going to go for the entire film, and having that last 5 minutes just turn everything on its head and just have the utter madness of like we remarked on this last episode in the Monsters of Maple Street, how those sort of last 5 minutes were just like absolute craziness, everyone just going out of their mind, and how it turned the whole episode on its head. And I think showing that that society as being actually a lot more crazy, you even got the sinister looks from all the I keep calling them pig people because it's the only thing I can relate to, like, which by the way, the effects on the what do you call it, the masks on the pig people, the prosthetics, thank you, on the pig people were incredible. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, they did a funky Star Trek forehead or a funky Star Trek face. They did just enough, like you said, Stars were watching it, like they did a lot of eye makeup. They did, I think the thing that got for me was the slightly offset jaw. They did just enough to say like, oh, this looks creepy, this doesn't look right. But immediately I'm thinking, well, this challenges my view of it. This challenges, like, well, this is their society. This is how they look. This is what's normal for them. And I think that was very clever to make you kind of have a makeup style that's very sort of half revolting. That makes you, it hits your uncanny valley. It hits that predator prey reflex, doesn't it? You're looking at this. This looks threatening. I need to run away and have a panic attack somewhere.
Yeah, and that's why I'm kind of glad that we got so much sympathetic dialogue from the doctor and stuff like that, because you understand that they aren't on an interpersonal level monsters, even though they look like that, and that's kind of important.
Go on, Otto. You've got your piece to say. Do it.
No, I'm good.
I think we're ready for some bread.
I think we are ready for some bread. Let's have Avery take us away.
Bread.
What was your bread of the episode? The moment that stuck out in your head as being, wow, this is going to live with me forever. Go, Otto. You start with us. What was your bread for this episode?
So when we started this series, I think I mentioned several times, about the twist. Like, the twist is quintessential Twilight Zone, and I probably set you guys up wrong to be always looking for it. I think if you put your head in Serling's hands and let the episode guide you, you'll appreciate where it's
played me like a harpsichord. Yes,
that's right. Yeah, I thought they were going up to heaven with that beautiful harp. So that being said, I am a basic male image again, and it's just a reveal when they hold her to the wall and they turn around and give you that reveal. Even if you knew kind of what the twist would be, you didn't know what image it would take on, and that's a great reveal.
It could have been faceless for all we know. That would have been cool.
The prosthetic was up to the task. So I mean, even this was filmed in '60, a lot of black and white televisions, a lot of Triscuit-sized CRTs. This holds up in HD, like the great prosthetic work. So just that reveal is, I feel no shame in taking the big twist reveal as my bread.
I'm gonna go with the whole the moment I noticed it, and the thing that'll stand out to me is the moment I noticed that no one was showing their face. Like right at the start, within the first 5 minutes, I'm thinking like, oh, the nurse is in shadow, and I was thinking, we haven't seen the nurse, and then in the shadow, and then the doctor comes out and he's also in the shadow, and I'm thinking like, okay, I know where we're going for something here. Like it kind of clued me into where the episode was going, but also I was just like, this is cool. I like when there's a different directorial choice here. Everyone's and I was thinking like, how are they gonna, do certain shots with this? So that's the definite faces in shadow was my bread for this episode. Stars or Dan? Who wants to go first?
I'll go. I will actually give my bread to the voice acting. Like frankly, just like especially our lead. I just think that there was just so much empathy and like Maxine Stewart just does such a good job of it, and like. I mentioned that like the almost complete disconnect between the physical acting and the voice acting, but the moment where she's just like grasping the doctor's hand, just like desperate to conform, just like pleading with not the doctor, but just like with existence, with God, with her genes to just let her be something that will fit in the society. Like that's strong. That's strong for me. That's my bread.
Dan.
It's the surgical scissors dropping to the floor in horror.
That's the good one.
That one shot of just feet withdrawing and then the scissors drop.
Very good. Very good. Another one I want to point out as well is the camera shot where it's shooting out of the blindfold and it's looking at sort of her point of view, and that is a very clever shot.
Really good
I think
as well.
of they're unwrapping, and you kind of get just enough light to think like that's what she's seeing, and you get the silhouettes of the hands, some good silhouette work. Like if there's one thing I've noted from the Twilight Zone, top-notch silhouette work and shadow work at all times. Like nothing compares.
Another great shot, which I only noticed on this is like the 12th time over the years that I've watched this. When they take her temperature at first, they stick it under the bandage, and it lifts up the bandage to give a curl that looks just like the mask, the pig mask on all of them. And I'd never noticed that before. So if you guys rewatch it, I think you'll notice that. So.
I'm going to rewatch it right now, actually. No. Okay. Let's go on to...
Well, if that's the best they could do, this should last about 5 minutes.
5 minutes. We will retrace our steps and figure out what's going on.
You've got 5 minutes. Do it.
Last 5 minutes. What would you change for this episode for the last 5 minutes? Let's start with Dan.
So something that Janet touched on in her descent into a close brush with the Twilight Zone of madness was when she's discussing alternatives and whether they could put her away. And what she meant by that was euthanasia. And she goes on to have a line or two referring to that. I think that this episode had to pull a punch because that's a pretty heady topic, but it's something, unfortunately, that we've heard and seen in media and with modern beauty standards really kind of mirroring a lot of what we see in this episode. And the dramatic impact it can have on families. I'd like to see that explored a little bit more. So perhaps maybe make the reveal halfway through and then deal with the other half being the emotional toll it takes on her, trying to come to terms with what will be her life going forward, living in a body that she is not comfortable inhabiting, and what her ultimate choice would be as far as how she will either cope or not going forward.
If you didn't have to worry about censors, would you take it the distance? Would you have her take her life?
I don't think so, because I want to be released from the Twilight Zone. I don't want to have to go to bed living in the Twilight Zone. I like to have a visit. I think that the message to the viewers should also be a little bit more uplifting than that also. I think that there's a way to live, and I think that relies on Mr. Smith at the end and others that are empathetic and sympathetic. I think that the episode makes a good point, and we talked about the bedside manner of the doctors, but it all being a front. It's kind of, we expect the doctors to exist in a certain way, but they all have their prejudices. We all do. We all are the doctors. And at the end of the day, when they're sitting smoking and having a word with each other in their smoking parlor they have in the hospital there, I guess the real thoughts and beliefs come out. So yeah, we really do need to find our own people that understand us and get us, and I think that's the ultimate message.
that was an analogy to almost a kind of Jewish concentration camp kind of situation. Like, oh, we'll put you with your own people. We'll put you in this special place where is a little bit, the Hitler the Nazi analogy maybe went a touch too far there, but yeah.
I'm going to jump on that last 5 minutes, and I'm gonna be cruel where you're kind, Dan. I'm gonna say that you get the all the way up to where Janet meets Mrs. Smith. It's like, don't worry, we're gonna go somewhere like you and I can be together. And then you get like a moment where like they're in like a train station or whatever, and it's you get on ahead of me. Train goes off, and it's like some of the pig people come along. It's like, this is a really tough duty you have, like making sure that they don't resist when we send them away. And then you just kind of get the implication, and Mr. Smith just looks very, torn, and maybe everyone around him is just absolutely disgusted by the way he looks and is very West Side Story in apparel and appearance. Just with the implication as the train goes off, it's like, okay, well, that's rough. That's what a fascist state looks like.
I think my last 5 minutes would be, I'd flip it on his head a little bit, and, she, like you say, Star, she goes, she ends up going like, oh, here's my people, and I'm going to go off for them. And as she leaves the hospital, she actually walks out of the hospital for the first time. And bear in mind, I'm going to assume she spent the majority of her life in treatments in one way or another. But as she steps out, she notices actually everyone looks like her. Everyone does. It's actually just the people inside this building that are conforming to this, are part of the pig people. They're being fed the propaganda of the leader and things like that. And it's actually, she's been living in an insular community, and actually the big wide world is full of, I don't want to say normal people, but more like, people that look like her without sort of like functioning to the stereotype, just to add another twist to the twist more than anything else. Go on, Otto. You got something to
I feel like
you
do a lot of Truman shows.
I love the Truman Show. It's such a good film.
It is good. It's very good.
It's a really good film.
I'm going to softball this one and steal from Star Trek's Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. You're white on the left side. Well, you're left or white on the right side. That makes us enemies. So they take the bandages off, and she's almost normal, but she's just a little bit off. She has a mole here or something, and they freak out because she doesn't look like us. Well, to the viewer, she looks close enough. No, but it's a big deal because it's a tiny difference, and that does, I think, highlight the absurdity of like people airbrushing the hell out of themselves because they have some minor little scar or something on their chin that no, like you said, Stars, that little thing, with your tooth, no one would notice that, but you notice, and it blows up in your mind, and so. That's a little more lighthearted lampoon, I think, of beauty standards.
Okay, let's go on to our...
I can show you my rating code.
Schiller rating 3.5.
Associational rating norm -3.
That's much too low a rating.
I was not accustomed to seeing an unsatisfactory rating on a member of my crew.
Time for our rating criteria for this episode, and it is my turn this week, and I do have one. I was going to go for Serlings appearing out of shadowy doorways. I was also going to go for saloon doors on a hospital room, but
saloon door.
That sounds so good to me.
Yeah, no, I've actually done. I've gone for a collection of P's. I've gone for how many problematic pig people proclaiming personal preference out of 10 would you give this episode?
Good.
All right, I'm gonna jump right in here. I'm gonna say 9.2 problematic pig people proclaiming personal preference out of 10.
Done.
I really like this episode. Like I've mentioned, obviously how it has personal resonance to me, how I can put myself in this perspective, how I completely ticks a lot of boxes in terms of what I look for in terms of sci-fi and dystopia and like personal character arcs. Loved all the voice acting, great directorial flair. Very simple story. Maybe it goes a little bit too long on the suspense. Maybe the reveal could have been moved around a little bit. But I think it just is very, very simple. It's a distillate. It's just exactly what it needs to be. It's over in 25 minutes. It's perfect. Not quite perfect. 9.2, but I really like this one.
I'm going to throw it out there. I'm going to give my first 10. This is 10
Really?
out of 10 for me. This was brilliant. I was hooked the whole way through. There was brilliant cinematography, perfect shadowy shots, brilliant use of them, a little hokey at times, but I don't care. Like, I didn't mean it. There was a great moral point, and yeah, I am also a fan of dystopian storylines, and dystopian storylines that are thread in just subtly enough that you go, oh, hang on, something's not quite right here, and then obviously they go full keel by the end of it. The makeup, like the prosthetics were amazing. Just the reveal at the end that, they've all been pig people the whole time, and it was actually an allegory for societal normality, like, all the boxes. No, this was great. I will forgive like some sort of like slight elongated tension at the beginning and the voiceover work, because the subject matter is something that it still resonates today. Like, it is an everlasting episode of television that I think at a certain age I will show my children. Like, watch this and tell me what you thought of it. Definitely 10 out of 10 for me. Auto.
I'll bump it up a little bit from my pre-rating, but I don't love this episode. I don't even know how much I like it. I like the discussion that we have about it, which I would like for any episode. So I'm gonna bump it up a little to 6. There's a lot of P's. Problematic pig people proclaiming personal preference.
Well done.
There's another episode that talks about beauty and conformity that I prefer. And the character in that takes a more firm stance on, I'm happy with who I am, and I like that. So maybe I'm a little jaded because there's an episode that I think handles it better. But there's a lot of stuff, the blocking, a lot of the choices, the behind the scenes where you read about how they cast these people, which paid off, Serling stepping aside on a good idea. There's a lot of great stuff here. And I can definitely understand why it's a classic. But it's not my personal favorite, so 6.
Dan?
I'm really glad this episode exists. It stands more as an art piece than it does. I had mentioned earlier, it kind of played as a radio play early on, but this episode could not be done without the visuals, without the reveal. So you have this tension between it being almost entirely a talkie and then also switching over to a really big finish. Does it work? I mean, it held our attention and really sparked a good discussion. So something about art is that the negative space is meaningful, and draws out something. And this episode, I feel, has a lot of layers to it, but also threw out one too many ideas to really properly digest in this format. So again, I'm glad it exists, but the tension is a little bit too much for me. I think I do agree with my original pre-rating. I think 6 is adequate for this episode.
Oh, wow.
That's a pretty strong disparity, but I like it.
I'm so glad that you wouldn't, I'm so glad you guys love an episode. Like, even if I hate it, the more you enjoy it, the happier I am. So.
I am.
The one
Well,
thing
you
that
also
I,
have to
the
give yourself
beholder,
credit for picking episodes that Will love that you don't.
yeah, that's
I
fine.
love finding
I am
things
great,
that I
that's
like.
true.
I do it with music. Occasionally I'll float. Yeah, I occasionally float around with music, and every now and then something kicks out and be like, I wouldn't listen to this usually, but oh my god, I love it. And this is kind of falling into that category of like, when you walk out of your comfort zone and you find something that you like. And any other day, I would not have touched the Twilight Zone, mostly because I would like, I haven't got time, or like, yeah, I can. I've not shown it. Now I'm like, I kind of want to, once we're done with this, I kind of want to digest all the episodes, the good and the bad, because this shows me how high the highs are. Like, and I love that.
The one thing that the beholder has given to me is that I'm glad that I found my people.
We're going to take you off to the colony, which, by the way, in media, trains are either like romantic, sappy, kissy send-offs, or it's like shit's gonna get real dark real fast. There's like no in between on trains. So
all the whimsical, magical adventures into somewhere amazing.
yeah.
Anyway, thank you all for watching. This has been the Twilight Zone. Auto, give us your best Rod Serling. What are we watching next time?
Next week you'll see a man descend into madness as something. You got to give me a heads up on this.
That's so good though.
I will.
It's not a bad impression.
That's good.
I believe we'll get Shyporn joining us next time for an episode that he loves, an episode that I love. It's going to be pre-rated very highly, so don't miss next week. Which is, I've already forgotten the list. Burgess Meredith in Time Enough at Last.
Time Enough at Last. I think
I know this one.
I think I've seen the spoof. Anyway, join us next time and stay happy.
Guess what? Twilight Zone is literally the ultimate epitome of I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards.
Yeah, by the way, that giant dump that Serling took, it was on the sign that said subtext. He's like, nah, fuck it.
Oh man, I really want to start
Glorious
the episode with that.
conformity, and he's doing like the highlight.
Yeah, for
The
real.
Mussolini outfit, yeah.
Let me just quickly look over these notes.